So November 4th kicks off the Marvel Madness in Magic the Gathering, and I thought I'd go ahead and just start brewing up some decks rather than going over the secret layers that these things come in. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first one that caught my attention, which is Storm Force of Nature. It's in the Teamer color range, red, green, and blue, and it's a 3/4 that when you hit with it, it gives any of your next instants and sorceries a version of Storm, which means then you can copy it for however many other spells you've cast before it. So let's go ahead and see what we can do with this deck by going over some cards that I would include. I'm not going to include the entire deck, but I'm going to give you the gist of what I have planned. Now, there's a lot of things you can do with this. You can go completely busted and or just kind of just eh. So we're going to kind of try to meet the middle of that range. We're not going to include any kind of extra turn spells or anything like that. That's just obnoxious, but we're going to do some other things instead. So let's get started on that right now. Let's start off with some spells that are kind of just big things that would be great to have copies of. Things like Magma Opus, things like Elemental Eruption. Both of these create tokens for us doing, 4/4 elementals and then the 4/4 elemental dragons with prowess to give us threats to work with. Well, if you can storm off and make multiple copies of these, you can get a lot of mileage. And on top of that, you can tap down creatures with Magma Opus. And then you can also just go ahead and discard it and get a treasure off of it in a pinch case. We also have things like the Lightning Bolt and Lightning Strike. The Lightning Bolt comes in the Secret Lair. Lightning Strike just kind of fits the theme, and I thought it'd give us another way to do a direct damage because you can grant it Storm and hit with multiple copies. You can also use a spell that's a little bit harder to use, but it's fun, and Isengard Unleash. Now, it doesn't make a ton of sense because you have to hit and then you've lost your combat, but if you can storm off enough copies of Isengard Unleashed, you can get damage tripling. It's a one-shot deal, but you can stack it with the storm abilities because you can get multiple copies of it going off. So then it starts to multiply out. So if you've cast it in one other spell, you get 6 times the damage if you give this a storm instead. And then you can go ahead and then toss like a lightning bolt into it, and you're going to deal 6 times the damage to somebody. So 2 copies of this going off is going to deal 18 damage to someone's face. So that's pretty good for, this plus 1 additional mana to just burn somebody out. Now, beyond that, what I'm going to do instead of extra turn spells, I'm going to do extra combat spells. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do extra combat triggering so that we can get Storm to hit multiple times. So we're going to use things like Relentless Assault and Overpowering Attack, Seize the Day, Great Train Heist, and Last Night Together. These things all are ways to get extra combats, but they can also be Storm copied with Storm's ability. So what you can then do is get multiple combats hit with her multiple times, and that does a couple of things for us. One, the obvious, if you hit enough times with her, you're going to commander damage somebody out. So if you can chain enough of these extra combats, you can hit somebody to 21 and take them out. Or you can go the other route, build up one big massive ball of storm, and then you cast your instant into this, and then you go ahead and you can just start blasting somebody with something. So the idea here is you get every time she hits, you just sit back, let that extra combat go, and then hit them again, and you get an extra instance of storm on the next instant or sorcery that you cast. Now, I'll get a little more on that as we talk about our next section, which is cloning. So one of the things that you can do with Storm is you can use the clones that are non-legendary clones, such as Irenicus's Vile Duplication, Nanogene Conversion, Quantum Misalignment, and Autoton Soldier. These things are able to make a legendary creature into non-legendary copies in order to hit multiple opponents and give multiple instances of Storm to stack up. So like the example I have here is the Autoton Soldier makes a copy of Storm. You swing with the original plus the clone copy. The clone copy triggers Myriad, and you're going to have 5 copies of Storm hitting your opponents. That's 5 times the Storm going on to your next spell. So just as an example of a lightning bolt that comes into the Secret Lair, you can go ahead and give it 5x Storm in this situation. And if you've cast extra spells beforehand for each spell you've cast, it's going to create 5 copies of lightning bolt going onto the stack. So say you did 2 of them beforehand, you go to combat, you smack, all 5 hit, and you have 5x copies going on, or Storm copies going onto that lightning bolt. The bolt hits, and it's going to multiply that by 2 for the spells. So you're going to get to put 10 copies of Lightning Bolt on the stack, and you can just start splitting those all over the place. Or you can just dome somebody for 30 upside the head, whatever. And then the last thing I have going on in this is where we kind of break away into, ways of doing this without having to rely on magic Christmas land to happen. And that is Bear Umbra and Nature's Will. Now, these are basically enchantments that will allow us to swing with Storm, and as long as she makes contact with somebody's face, our lands get untapped. So we're able to go ahead and dump our mana back into these things like these extra combat spells, like these big heavy hitters, so we can use our cheap stuff to begin with, burn our mana up in phase 1, swing, make contact, and then all the mana opens back up, and then we can cast the big hit, the big spell that we want to storm off with. So that's like the gist of the deck. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. While you're down there, check out the description. It has the entire deck list that I've pulled together. I think it's kind of fun, but it's not too overbearing. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is a little overbearing. Let me know what you think of that. And as always, thank you for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.